Welcome to this verification webinar. In this webinar, we will discuss the verification process. To start out, I wanted to talk about what is verification. It's confirmation of the eligibility status that the household provided on the application. So it would be collecting documentation of income or documentation that a household member is participating in an assistance program, so you can confirm that what the household submitted on the application is accurate. You do not have to do verification for directly certified students. For students who are homeless, runaway, migrant, Head Start, or foster, if they are on a direct cert list, or they have a letter provided by the Department of Social Services, or if the homeless liaison has given you a list with them on there. RCCIs, or residential child care institutions without any day students, are not required to do verification. And LEA's operating district-wide community eligibility provision, CEP, or provision 3, not in the base year, or provision 2 for both lunch and breakfast, not in the base year, do not have to do verification. And schools operating non-pricing programs and claiming only at the paid rate don't have to do verification. And schools only participating in special milk program don't have to do verification. So even though it's not required to perform verification, RCCIs, CEP, and provision schools are still required to complete the verification report. So don't forget that step, even though you don't have to do verification. These are some important dates to remember for the verification process. On October 1st, you'll count all your applications that are subject to verification. So that will determine how many applications you need to verify. Then on the last operating day in October, you'll count the number of students on applications subject to verification. So that number you don't actually use in the verification process, but that gets used on the verification report. So don't forget to do that. And then on November 15th, the verification process must be completed. And then the last date is December 15th, and that is the date that the verification report is due in the web applications system. To establish the sample pool, you'll count the number of approved applications on October 1st. So make sure to count applications and not the number of students. So when you count the applications, you'll include those applications that are approved for free and reduced price based on income, those that are approved applications with a SNAP or TANF case number, those foster children on an application if you don't have any supporting documentation and if they did not show up on the direct cert list. And then you'll also include any mixed household applications, and those are applications that they have an other source categorically eligible, so foster or homeless, along with students eligible based on income. When you're counting the applications, do not include applications with students who have been directly certified. Once they've been directly certified, those applications are disregarded because you're going to record them as directly certified, not as application. And those applications are not subject to verification. Also, do not count students certified as homeless, runaway, migrant, Head Start, or foster with a letter or direct cert who have a letter or who are on the direct certification list if there are no other students on that application. And don't count any denied applications either. If it's denied because of income or if it's denied because it's incomplete, don't count those when you're determining who to verify. After you've counted your applications, you're ready to calculate your sample size. There are 3 available sample sizes or sample methods that we'll discuss. The first is the standard sample size, also called error-prone. Next is alternate 1, or random, and most LEAs qualify for this one and they'll use this sample method. And the last is alternate 2, which is also called focused. The standard sampling size is used by new LEAs and LEAs with more than 20% non-response rate for verification from the previous year. So if you did verification the previous year and some households responded and some didn't, if you had 20% or more non-response rate from the previous year, then you are required to do that standard sampling method. A list of LEAs required to use the standard sampling method is published by DESE and it's put on our website each year. For the standard sample size, you're required to verify 3% of your applications, and those applications must be selected from error-prone applications. So error-prone applications are applications within $100 of the monthly eligibility guideline, or within $1,200 of the annual eligibility guideline. So that's the difference between standard and the others, is that you're selecting from error-prone applications. So you verify 3%, but you have to select from error-prone applications. If you have less than 20% non-response rate from the previous year, then you have the option to select either alternate 1 or alternate 2. Most LEAs select alternate 1. It's a little easier to do the calculations and to select the applications. So for alternate 1, you'll verify 3% of the applications just like you did with standard sample, but the difference is you'll select the applications randomly. So instead of error-prone, you select the applications randomly. And then last is alternate 2. Again, we don't have very many LEAs that choose to do this, but if you had less than 20% non-response rate, you can choose to do alternate 2. So you'll verify 1% of your applications selected from error-prone plus 0.5% of your case number applications. So again, the selection is a little more complicated, so most LEAs that qualify to do an alternate sampling method choose to do the alternate 1, but then some do still select alternate 2. So this is just reiterating what we talked about. For standard sample size, it's required for LEAs that had a non-response rate of 20% or more the previous year, and they have to select 3% of approved applications selected from error-prone applications. For alternate 1, the LEA must have a non-response rate of less than 20% the prior year. Again, they'll verify 3% of applications, but then they select from random applications. For alternate 2, LEAs with less than 20% non-response rate from the previous year can choose alternate 2, and then they will choose 1% of applications selected from error-prone applications plus 0.5% of case number applications. When you're calculating the sample size, all decimals are rounded upward. So, for example, if 3% of your applications is 5.1, you must verify 6 applications. You can't round down to 5. You always have to round up. Verification for cause, which is verifying applications that may be questionable, is not included in the sample size. It's done in addition to your normal verification process. We'll talk a little bit more about verification for cause later. And you must not verify less than or more than your sample size. So don't go ahead and just verify all of your applications. You must only verify your required sample size. So this is an example district, and we'll go through an example of how to calculate each sample method. So we'll start with the standard sample size calculations. First, you'll calculate 3% of total applications. So in this example, we had 836 income applications. 23 of them are error-prone. We have 30 case number applications and 2 foster applications for a total of 868 applications. So when we calculate 3% of total applications, we calculate 868, our total applications, times 0.03, and that gives us 26.04. But remember, we always have to round up. So we're required to verify 27 applications. And what's unique about the standard sample size is we have to select those from error-prone applications. So you'll notice in this example, we have to select 27 error-prone applications, but in this example, we only have 23 error-prone. So you'll verify all 23 of those, and then the additional applications you'll select randomly to get those 4 additional applications to verify. So now we'll use the same district, but we'll calculate the alternate 1 sample size. It starts out the same as the standard sample size, where we're verifying 3% of applications. So we'll take the 868 total applications multiplied by 0.03, gives us 26.04. Again, we have to round up, so we'll verify 27 applications. But this is different than the standard sample size because we select these applications randomly. So we could verify any of these applications. So we'll randomly select 27 applications to verify for the alternate 1 sample size. This time we'll calculate the alternate 2 sample size. So this is a little different because first we'll do 1% of the total applications. So 868 times 0.01 is 8.68 applications. We always round up, so we'll verify 9 applications, and those we have to select from the error-prone applications. So we'll select those 9 from these 23 error-prone applications. Then in addition to that, we have to calculate 0.5% of the case number applications. So we take the case number applications, right here is 30, and we multiply that by 0.005. That gives us 0.15, and again, we always round up, so we have to verify 1 case number application. So in total, we have 9 error-prone applications plus 1 case number application. So you can see in this example district, if they selected alternate 2, they only had to verify 10 total applications, whereas if they selected standard or alternate 1, they were verifying 27 applications. So you can see in this district, they had to verify a lot fewer applications. If you have a really small district where you're only verifying 1 or 2 applications anyway, you might as well just do your standard or alternate 1. After you select the applications that you're going to be verified, you must conduct a confirmation review to ensure that the initial determination was accurate. So the confirming official needs to be a different person than the determining official. So they'll check the income calculations, check that the right eligibility category was selected, and check that the application is complete. And then after the confirmation review, the confirming official needs to sign the application at the bottom to document that the confirmation review was conducted. If you have a technology-based system that you use to determine the eligibilities, you can get that confirmation review waived, but you'll just need to contact us at DESE to get approval and let us know what technology system you're using and let us know that you want to be waived from having to do the confirmation review. In the eligibility manual, it tells you what to do if the confirmation review finds that the original determination was incorrect. So that's what this chart here shows. The main difference is that if the application was originally supposed to be denied, then you would remove their benefits and not verify that application, since if they were supposed to be denied in the first place, they shouldn't be subject to verification. So if you find that, you would need to select a different application to replace it, and you would just want to replace it with something that's similar. So if it was a case number, replace with a case number. If it was error prone, replace with error prone. So this information is available in the eligibility manual if you run into that. After completing the confirmation review, you can choose to replace up to 5% of your applications. So you should consider factors such as a household stability, communication difficulties when declining the applications. So if you have someone that you know is having a lot of medical problems or crises, or there might be a messy divorce or something like that going on, or you haven't been able to be in contact with the family for some other reason and you know that they might not be able to respond because of some hardship, then you can replace that application. If you replace an application, it needs to be replaced with a similar one. For example, an error prone would need to be replaced with an error prone. And then if 5% is less than one application, you are still allowed to replace one application. After the confirmation review, you can begin requesting documentation to verify the application. So if the application had a case number, instead of contacting the household, you can perform direct verification, which is also called verification using agency records. To do this, you will reach out directly to the local food stamp or temporary assistance office. If the agency isn't able to provide you records to verify, then you'll need to contact the household to ask them to submit documentation to verify. You wouldn't reduce their benefits without giving them the opportunity to provide the documentation. And then just keep in mind, direct verification is not the same thing as direct certification. So direct verification is verifying by going directly to that food stamp office or temporary assistance office. If you're verifying the income or not doing direct verification on a case number application, then you will contact the household. And the letter that you will use, you can get an example letter in our verification manual. It lets the family know that they were selected for verification, and it lets them know what documentation is required for them to submit. Sources of responses to verification could include written evidence, collateral contacts, agency records, or pay stubs. If the household has no income, then you need to verify, then you must request an explanation of how their living expenses are met. So then if they say something about, well, I'm collecting unemployment, well, then you would need to verify that unemployment because that counts as income. If you don't get a response from the household, you're required to make at least one follow-up attempt to contact the household. You can contact them more, but you need to follow up at least once. Let them know that if they don't provide any information, then they'll have to pay for their meals. If they still don't respond, then you must let them know their benefits are being terminated, and this needs to be done through a written notice of adverse action. So if their benefits are terminated because they didn't respond or because the information they responded with shows that they are not eligible for free or reduced meals, then you will provide them this notice of adverse action. This is in our verification handbook. The household must be given 10 calendar days advance notice before you take away or reduce their benefits. So the first day is the date that you send the letter, and then 10 calendar days later is when you would change the status in your system. So this chart shows when verification is considered complete. Remember, you have to complete verification by November 15th, so make sure one of these happens by November 15th. If the household submits evidence of their current eligibility, then verification is complete, and it's optional to send a notice of continuing benefits, but you don't have to. There is an example of that notice in the verification guidance handbook. Next, the household could submit evidence that they qualify for greater benefits. So they might have been reduced and now they qualify for free. So in that case, you'll send a notification that the benefits increased. When you send that notification, then verification is considered complete, and you should update your benefit issuance document immediately, but at least within 3 operating days. And then the others are if the household decreases in status. So if they submit evidence that shows they should receive a lower level of benefits, or if they let you know that they no longer wish to receive benefits or are not going to reply to your verification, or if it shows that they were not able to show that a household member was receiving assistance program benefits, so they no longer qualify, then you will send that notice of adverse action. When you send the notice of adverse action, that is when verification is considered complete, and then you have 10 calendar days after that to update your benefit issuance document. But when you actually send the letter is when verification is complete. So make sure that gets sent by November 15th. Verification for cause is when you verify any questionable applications. So if the application is complete, you must take it at face value, but if you have integrity concerns that you, for some reason, you believe this is information is not correct, you'll go ahead and verify for that for cause. If the information on the application is unclear or questionable, then first try to contact the household to get it clarified, because it might just be a misunderstanding and you could just clarify it right then without going through the verification process. But if you're questioning the integrity of that application, you should verify it for cause. Households have the right to reapply for benefits at any time during the school year. However, if they were pulled for verification, when they reapply, they'll need to provide supporting documentation at that time. So either proof of their income or proof that they're participating in an assistance program or that they're foster. So the next year they can reapply without providing supporting documentation, but if they reapply within the year they were selected for verification, they must provide documentation. So this is a summary of the verification process. This is what we talked about, so we'll just go over this. First, you establish the sample pool, so those applications approved as October 1st, you'll count those. Then next, you'll establish the sample size, so calculate the number of applications that must be verified. So if you're doing standard sample method or alternate one sample method, take your number of approved applications and multiply that by 3%. Then select your applications for verification, so pull those randomly or select from your error prone depending on your sample method. Then conduct your confirmation review. Make sure to do this prior to contacting the household. And then notify the households of selection for verification or conduct direct verification. Then examine the documents that you receive back from the households. Notify the households of their continued benefits or if they changed in benefit level, and make sure that's done by November 15th. Then update your benefit issuance document and point of service document. So if the benefits decreased, update it 10 days after sending that notice of adverse action. And then complete the verification report in the web application system by December 15th. The Verification Guidance Handbook gets updated every year, and it's on our website under Handbooks or under Guidance and Resources and Verification. The USDA Eligibility Manual also has a lot of detail on the verification process, and that is on our website under Handbooks. Also, notifications will be sent to the authorized rep. Then the USDA released a new verification toolkit last year with ideas about how to increase your response rate for verification. So this is the link to the website. They have quite a few information sheets there, and I have some examples here just to show you. So this is a sheet showing households how they can submit their verification documents by sending pictures from their smartphones. So that's available on the USDA website that you can use. Then this is a flyer that helps households figure out what documents they should submit. And this flyer shows how families that they can turn in their information electronically through the mail or by bringing the information into the school. And the last sheet I wanted to share with you has some ideas that you can use to help get more families to respond. So some ideas I liked were to send reminders in different colored envelopes, send a self-addressed prepaid envelope with the request, and then also let households come in to use your office computer to print their documents. So there's more information on that toolkit, so I'd recommend taking a look at that if you're trying to improve your response rate. And that's all I have on the verification process. There will be a separate webinar on how to complete the verification report. If you have any questions, please give me a call or send an email. Thank you.